The slap didn't just sting my face, it seared through something much deeper. Right there in the middle of the airport, surrounded by strangers, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and the PA system announcing boarding calls, my father raised his hand and struck me. And not in private, not in the heat of a private argument or behind closed doors. No, he did it in front of everyone. My dignity shattered with the sound of his palm meeting my cheek. I stood frozen, not because of the pain was manageable, but because of the sheer shock, the humiliation, the disbelief that my own father would reduce me to this, over something so small. A suitcase, not even mine, my sister's, again. People turned their heads, a child clutched her mother's hand tighter. A couple whispered to each other behind the check-in kiosk. I felt their eyes on me, not in sympathy, not in concern, but that uncomfortable kind of curiosity. The way people look at car crashes. My sister didn't say a word, she didn't even flinch, she adjusted her sunglasses, looked away, and let the moment pass like it was just another Tuesday. That's what hurt the most. No remorse, no regret, not even embarrassment. I looked at my mom, hoping foolishly for a different reaction, but she just gave me that look, that you should have just listened look, the kind of look that gaslights your pain. That makes you feel like you brought this on yourself. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to shout, to ask why I was always the one punished, why I was expected to carry the burden, not just literally, but emotionally. Why being born the son meant being born the scapegoat, but I said nothing, not yet. Instead, I picked up my backpack, clenched my jaw, and walked a few steps away, pretending to check my phone. I needed space. I needed to breathe. My heartbeat was pounding in my ears, and my face felt like it was on fire. Part from the slap, part from the shame. Not just shame that he hit me, but shame that I let it happen again. That I kept hoping they'd treat me like I mattered, like I was more than just the family's emotional punching bag. That slap at the airport wasn't a surprise. It was just the latest chapter in a long, painful book I'd been forced to live through. My entire life had been built around one unspoken rule: she came first. My sister was the sun in our house, bright, untouchable, constantly adored, and I was just expected to revolve around her. From the moment we were kids, the imbalance was clear. She got the new toys, I got her old ones. She got the praise for just existing, and I had to work twice as hard just to be noticed. If I got a B, I was told to try harder. If she got a B, she was told she was doing amazing. It was like I was growing up in the shadow of a statue everyone worshipped, but no one bothered to see the boy who stood next to it. It wasn't just the material things, though those hurt too. She got the better room, with the bigger window and the new furniture. I slept next to the boiler room for years because it was just for now, and that now turned into most of my childhood. She never had to do chores. I was doing dishes and carrying groceries by the time I was 10. And if I complained, I was told I was being dramatic, ungrateful, not man enough, but the real damage was emotional. My feelings never counted. If I got upset, it was "don't be so sensitive." If she cried, the whole house stopped to comfort her. I remember once, I fell off my bike and scraped my arm raw. I came home crying, blood dripping down my elbow, and my mom barely glanced at it. "Put a Band-Aid on it," she said, while she sat massaging my sister's feet because she was stressed from school. That's how it always was. No matter what I went through, her needs came first, and the worst part, I started believing it, that maybe I really was less, that maybe I was born to serve, to stay quiet, to swallow my voice just to keep the peace. I didn't even know what I liked anymore. Every decision I made was filtered through their expectations. Be polite, don't argue, make her life easier. I was trained to make myself smaller so she could shine brighter. As I stood near the edge of the waiting area, pretending to scroll through my phone while my face still throbbed, something inside me changed, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, soul-deep click, like a lock turning for the first time. I looked over at them, my father, still grumbling like he'd done the right thing, my mother, whispering to my sister while casting annoyed glances in my direction, and my sister, relaxed as if nothing had happened, like the world still spun for her and her alone. And in that moment, I realized something crystal clear. I didn't owe them anything, not my silence, not my obedience, not my dignity. I'd spent years trying to earn a seat at their table, only to be served crumbs and insulted if I asked for more. But I wasn't that boy anymore. I was a grown man. I had a job. I had savings. I had choices, and right then, I chose myself. I opened the airline app on my phone. It was something I'd done a dozen times before, checking flight details, gate info, boarding times. But this time, I went deeper. I looked at upgrades, not for fun, not out of curiosity, but with intent. There it was, like a divine sign. One seat left in first class, one. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment. I thought about the money. I'd been saving for something else. But what was more important than this, than reclaiming even just a sliver of self-respect? I tapped confirm. And just like that, everything shifted. I didn't tell them. I didn't make a scene. When the boarding call came, I waited until they lined up at the economy gate. My father gave me a look like he was expecting me to fall back in line. I didn't. I walked in the opposite direction, calm, straight, backed, no hesitation. When the first-class attendant scanned my ticket and smiled, saying, "Welcome aboard," it was the first time in years someone had spoken to me with respect. I stepped onto that plane not as their baggage handler, not as their afterthought, but as my own man. They noticed me walking past. The confusion in their eyes was delicious. My sister took off her sunglasses like they were suddenly malfunctioning. My mother's jaw tensed. My father looked like he couldn't quite compute what was happening. The door to the first-class cabin closed with a soft thud, but to me, it sounded like a vault ceiling shut, locking out years of pain, insults, and humiliation. As I settled into my wide leather seat, a flight attendant offered me a glass of welcome champagne. I didn't even hesitate. I took it with a calm nod and let the bubbles rise to the top as I stared out the window. My family was somewhere behind me now, packed tight in economy, probably still processing what had just happened. I could picture the argument brewing, my father fuming in his seat, my mother whispering about how I was being dramatic, and my sister checking her phone for Wi-Fi to complain about me in her group chat. But I wasn't part of that anymore. I had unhooked the chain they'd wrapped around my neck since childhood, and the freedom. It was intoxicating. The flight was 8 hours long. 8 hours of pure silence, no orders barked at me, no expectations to serve anyone, no tension humming in my chest. I watched move as I wanted to watch, ate food without judgment, and for the first time in my life, slept peacefully at 30,000 feet without wondering if someone needed something from me. I wasn't just traveling to another country. I was flying out of the cage they had built around me and convinced me was home. When we landed, I didn't wait for them. I breezed through customs, found my own cab, and checked into a boutique hotel far from the one they'd booked. I didn't answer their calls, not the missed calls, not the dozens of texts full of guilt, trips, manipulations, and thinly veiled threats. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't that boy waiting to be accepted. I was a man who had accepted himself. I spent the trip exploring on my own, meeting people, laughing without looking over my shoulder, walking streets where no one knew me as the forgotten son. I didn't feel alone. I felt whole. When I got back home, I knew I couldn't go back to how things were. I packed up, found a new place to live, and slowly, silently, cut off every string they had tied to me. No more calls. No more favors. No more pretending like things were okay when they never were. Years later, when they reached out again, desperate, financially crumbling, suddenly full of kind words and empty apologies, I didn't even feel anger. Just clarity. In the end, my story isn't just about a slap at the airport. It's about everything that led to that moment, the years of being overlooked, dismissed, used. It's about how one moment of public humiliation became the final crack that split open everything I had kept buried. But most of all, it's about choosing myself. For the first time, I didn't wait for anyone's permission. I didn't seek their approval. I upgraded my seat, yes, but more importantly, I upgraded my life. I stopped carrying bags that were never mine to begin with. I walked away from the weight of their expectations, their emotional blackmail, their twisted definition of family, and I walked into peace, dignity, and self-worth. Some people say revenge is about getting even, but for me, It was about getting free.